Whiter?
Here.
Mr. Simons?
Present.
Mrs. Cleveland?
Here.
Mrs. Moore?
Here.
Mrs. Kessler?
Here. We are all here. We'll now stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next is approval or revision of the agenda. Anybody?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Mrs. Petter, please call the roll.
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland?
Yes.
Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Kessler?
Yes.
Mrs. Whiter?
Yes. Thank you. The next item is the inspirational message from Lincoln Heights Elementary School. If I can see it, I can be it.
Oh, can we go down?
Thank you, Mrs. Whiter. I'm going to call Dawn Bailey, our unbelievable elementary principal, up. She's going to introduce 7 amazing young scholars. Mrs. Bailey.
Wow.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for that amazing introduction. We'll just say that. I am very proud to be here in front of you. It's been an amazing school year, and we are just here to spotlight a very small bit of our work as we support our theme this year, Greatness Loading. So in February, our theme this year for African American History Month was, If I Can See It, I Can Be It. And our students engaged in month-long research. They selected African American scientists, past and present. And let me tell you, if you don't walk away learning something new today, you're shaming yourself. You are going to learn something new. Our teachers are unbelievable, and a shout out to those that came to support this evening. I appreciate you hanging around for a couple of hours to hopefully spend some time relaxing and socializing, but to come support our students. So they're just going to show you a quick glimpse of our celebration. We put together a science fair. It was awesome to have parents back in the building for the first time in 2 years and to roam around and check out the displays. Our students were amazing. Kindergarten through 5th grade all celebrated African American scientists. So we have a little bit of that to share with you today.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we have greatness loading at every grade, we see ourselves becoming prepared for our future, not only as students but as game changers. We are loading greatness into this world, set by the examples of those before us. If I can see it, I can be it.
If you have ever needed directions and used Google Maps or Maps on your iPhone, you can thank Dr. Gladys West. Dr. West is an American mathematician known for her contributions to the mathematical model of the shape of the Earth. Her work led to the development of the global GPS.
If you ever use an app on your phone or tablet, you can thank a woman like Kaya Thomas. Kaya Thomas is an American computer scientist, app developer, and writer. She is the creator of Reread 2, an app that helps readers discover books of and by people of color. She received a recognition for her work to improve diversity in the tech industry and was honored in 2015 by Michelle Obama.
If you ever wonder about the many ways that children with brain disorder can be helped, you are no different from Dr. Alexa Kennedy.
Dr. Kennedy is not only the first black woman to become a neurosurgeon, but she is a pediatric neurosurgeon. During her career, Dr. Kennedy engaged in research to make many advances in neurosurgery. This research led to the invention of a programmable shunt to treat hydrocephalus and abnormal accumulation of fluid inside the brain, for which she shares a U.S. patent with two fellow neurosurgeons. This invention helped to improve the survival rate of many children.
During the past couple of years, we worried about COVID-19. We stayed home, we stayed away from friends and family, we wore masks, and finally, we were able to get a vaccine. If you got a vaccine or know someone who has, you can thank Dr. Kazmika S. Corbett. Kazmika Corbett is an immunologist at the U.S. National Institute of Health and one of the scientists who in early 2020 helped to develop an mRNA-based vaccine for COVID-19. This became Moderna's vaccine.
We have all heard stories of people being hurt or sick and needing blood, or people making blood donations. Well, Dr. Charles Drew was an American surgeon and medical researcher. He researched in the field of blood transfusion, developing improved techniques for blood storage, and applied his expert knowledge to develop large-scale blood banks early in World War II. We can thank Dr. Charles Drew for his life-saving work in this field.
If you know someone who has cataract eye surgery, you can thank Dr. Patricia Bath. Dr. Patricia Bath was an ophthalmologist and laser scientist. Not only was she the first female African-American doctor to patent a medical device, but also the first person to invent a laser probe cataract surgery that greatly advanced treatment for cataracts.
If you ever enjoy a nice swim in the ocean, free of garbage bags, or watch a show about ocean animals, one of the people you can thank for that is Dr. Ayanna E. Johnson. Dr. Ayanna E. Johnson is a marine biologist, policy expert, and writer. She is co-founder of Urban Ocean Lab, a think tank for coastal cities, and co-creator of the podcast How to Save a Planet on Climate Solution. She is on the 2021 Time 100 Next list and was named one of ELLE's 27 women leading on climate.
Have you ever visited Washington, D.C., wore special glasses to watch a solar eclipse, or tried to avoid those 17-year cicadas? If so, we can thank Benjamin Banneker. Benjamin Banneker always wondered about the things in nature and how they worked in his lifetime. He accomplished a few amazing things, such as surveying, predicting the solar eclipse, and being the first African American to create an almanac that helped farmers and fishermen, as well as calculate the cycle of the 17-year cicadas.
Have you ever wondered about computer coding? Well, Kimberly Bryan is working to make it so young girls no longer need to wonder about computer coding, but actually learn to code. Kimberly Bryan is the founder and executive director of Black Girls Code, a nonprofit organization dedicated to change the face of technology by introducing girls of color ages 7 through 17 to the field of technology and computer science with concentration on entrepreneurial concepts.
If you have ever seen a naval ship on TV or know someone in the Navy, then you may know that they use many different kinds of ships. Well, we can thank Ray Montague for making the design and use of ships much easier. Ray Montague was the groundbreaking mathematician, engineer, and ship designer who smashed both gender and racial barriers to revolutionize U.S. naval ship design. She became the U.S. Navy's first female program manager of ships.
If we can see it, we can be it.
Can you all come out here, please? Come on, they're not going to bite you, I promise. I'll bite them back. Please give my students a big round of applause. Take a bow, ready? And Mrs. Poe, will you join us, please? Thank you for pulling this together for us this evening to just show a little bit of the greatness that we've been loading. And thank you again for the opportunity. Thank you for showcasing students each month. And thank you to my staff and to my families. Have a good evening.
Thank you for bringing those delightful students, and I think somebody famous, maybe your mother, said by our students we are taught. So I used to teach with her mother way back. So thank you, thank you. Next is recognition of visitors. Are there any? Okay. Next is recognition of John Lorenzo.
So this is always another great part of the program every month. JD, if you can come on up here, please. Just come on up on this side if you don't mind. JD, for those of you who don't know him, is a force to be reckoned with. You're going to hear a little bit more about him later. But JD represented Princeton so very well at the Rotary meeting. He was Student of the Month for all of Rotary. He did a great job. He took over the mic, and actually I think everybody fell in love with him. The things that he said, he was really talked specifically about the power of connections and family and the importance of Princeton in his life. And moving here, he's taking advantage of all these different opportunities, which again, you'll hear a little bit more about. You're gonna be on the stage a couple more times, JD. Let's put your hands together. Student of the Month, he's being recognized as a Student of the Month by us, by being recognized by the Rotary Student of the Month. Great job, JD.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Excellent job.
The next student we're going to recognize is Marielle Smith. Coming up here, Marielle. You guys can clap. This is a special young lady right here. Thank you. So it has been, there's never been a student at Princeton to ever win the four-way speech competition for Rotary, never. And I think we should have won a couple different times. But this was a slam dunk, and I was more nervous this year than any because your competition was really, really tough. Poised is an understatement. And one of the things, if you don't know much about Rotary, they have a four-way test. And the four-way test that's up there because people like me as a Rotary member may not remember it. So everybody looks at this four-way test, and it's just there. It's always there. And it really is kind of the way that you live your life. And it was such a passionate speech. It was amazing. Slam dunk, there was no question about it. The first student of Princeton to ever win this, and the first student of color to ever win this. Put your hands together. Marielle Smith, unbelievable young lady. And as she's walking, I just wanted to continue to brag on her because she participated in a great program that we had with the Thurgood Marshall College Fund, which you'll hear a little bit about later. Marielle gave a beautiful performance poetry herself, and then she came up with one of her friends and classmates, and it was unbelievable, this power of two performance poetry, and I hadn't seen that. Marielle, you know I hadn't seen that, and it was so incredible because these two, it's like a performance like no other. They both talk simultaneously, and then one stops, the other continues. And then like a word triggers somebody, then her partner, and then she went. It was back and forth. It was so powerful. The second that they were done, standing ovation. It was amazing. Congratulations again, Marielle. And I'm going to call on stage right now Rebecca McGowan, who she's no surprise visitor here. She's been here multiple times. No stranger to the stage, right, Rebecca? She's been here a ton. And Rebecca is our unbelievable business teacher. She's done so many wonderful things here. Also, DECA advisor. And if you guys remember several years ago when we were so very proud that we actually started a DECA club, we recognized Miss McGowan. So wait till you hear what she's going to tell you tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Burton. Am I on? I'm sorry. Okay,
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Burton and school board for having us out tonight. As Mr. Burton said, I am the business teacher and DECA advisor. We have had the business program and DECA at Princeton High School for 5 years. And every year, we just get better and better. And I'm so proud of these guys. I'm not going to be able to say much because they know I'm a crier. But I want the attention to be on them, but I'm so proud of them. And the ones who are here tonight are those who placed at our district level competition and also then went on to compete in our state level competition. And we have one here tonight who's moving on to compete in the national DECA competition. So I'd like to call them up and recognize them. And they're getting a certificate. And guys, just to let you know, there's a little note from me in here as well. So when I call your name, please come up. Jackson Woodall. Jackson. Jackson placed second in business finance. Kendall Wilson.
Oh, you can go up there.
Kendall placed fourth in human resources at our district level and 10th at the state level. Jaquan Turnage. Jaquan placed first in sports and entertainment and 8th place in sports and entertainment at state, and he also is now moving on to our national competition starting April 23rd. Jack Betts. Jack placed third in sports and entertainment at the district competition and 10th at our state competition. Devon Wooten. Devon placed fourth in sports and entertainment. And a name you're familiar with already, J.D. Lorenzo. He received first place in professional selling, also our first DECA competitor to get a perfect score on his presentation, and he placed 7th at the state level. Derek Bush. Derek placed 5th in sports and entertainment at our district competition and switched things up just a little bit and then placed 8th in a professional selling event at state. And then the last two I'm going to call up together because they're a team. Shirley Roblero Lopez and Leslie Torres placed 6th in our marketing team competition. while they're coming up, we also have a special extra little thing we're going to do. Kendall, unfortunately, there was some kind of mistake, error, I'm not totally sure what happened at our state competition, and there they call up the top 10 students in their event to the stage, and she placed 10th, but she did not get called up. And when they call them up there, they get a medal. So I have a medal for Kendall and wanted to make sure she got that tonight.
Ms. McGowan, thank you so much. Wonderful job. Congratulations to everybody. We're going to take a big picture of the Board of Education. All those students recognized tonight. Coming up here with the Board of Education, we'll take a picture. We're going to have somebody out in the audience take a picture, or 12. That'd be good. Yep. Let's stand right over here so we don't have anything in our way. There we go. One more time, here we go. Each month, our students never cease to amaze us. They're simply amazing. Let's give them all one more big round of applause. And all the parents, it's your opportunity to leave, or else you're here for the next 4 hours. Okay, thank you.
They're running now.
The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Well, I will move to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Petter?
Wait. Yes.
Is there discussion?
Yes.
Okay.
For those who are newer, like myself, and perhaps Mrs. Kessler, we want to look at what the specifics are of item L, specifically what has been the results thus far and how are we going to measure them going forward, because it's a renewal.
So that's Dreambox, and I'm going to call up Ms. Libby Stiles, who are Director of Secondary Education, to discuss that.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Can you hear me okay? Okay. So the renewal for our Dreambox, it started as a pilot earlier this year for our middle school math students. Since we are going through a middle school core math adoption, we were also looking at some supplemental resources to help with our students in the area of both remediation and enrichment. And we came across Dreambox, which comes very highly rated, effective so that if students who complete 5 lessons a week are expected to show up to 2 times of their expected growth. So as we continue to look at different ways where we can recover from the COVID learning loss, we found that Dreambox was definitely a program that engages students. It's got a gamified approach, so from an engagement standpoint, it definitely surpassed several of the other options that we either were currently using or looking at. And then it also came backed by the ESSA evidence strong, which what it means by that is that they have conducted research studies with fixed groups of students to say that when they ran those studies, those students who did in fact complete those 5 lessons were in fact showing that growth. So they've done the studies behind it for the research to support that it is a program that is truly impactful for our students. So from a renewal standpoint, because it was a pilot and then we are purchasing it as an actual service for the next 2 years, that is why it's listed as a renewal. What we're working on with teachers this year is we're working on how we can continue that learning throughout the summer, because it is something that's accessible 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So when we want to continue for students to learn throughout that summer, it's available to them at any given time. It's a very low lift for students in the sense that you don't require a lot of knowledge needed necessarily from a technology standpoint. It's pretty intuitive, and they've also gotten a whole semester's worth of practicing it. What we need to continue to work on is making sure that we're reaching those 5 lessons. That's where I think it's going to be important from now until the remainder of the year, and where our teachers have been working currently, is to make sure that they're using it sometime during the classroom, because we don't want students to get frustrated if they are inputting the time and not getting those 5 lessons completed. So we want to make sure that we're providing that support on the teacher end, because Dreambox is not a replacement to the teacher, it's to supplement the work that the teachers are doing, and then continue with that professional learning throughout the course of next year, in which we've implemented or we've purchased some professional learning options for our teachers, so that in addition to the 5 lessons that the students are completing, teachers can also assign additional lessons for students based on where their areas of deficiencies are, so they can receive that extra level of support.
At what point will you come back and give us an update? 6 months, a year?
Well, I'll answer that question.
Okay.
We give we give academic updates all the time, so that will be wrapped into one of our academic updates, specifically about programs that the board would like. We could take a look at all the technological programs that we have, that we've purchased, and we could bring them all in. Dreambox.
That'd be great.
I'm sorry.
Said that would be great.
Yeah. So we could do that. In fact, let's just make a note of that. We'll do that specifically, not just we'll do an academic update, but a technology, 'cause since we have so many different platforms, we could add that. Thank you. And I believe there was also another question, Mr. Simons?
Yes, about the administrator on assignment at Hillcrest.
Yeah, so Dr. Phillips will come up and she'll talk about that. But remember, that used to be when we, people say that public dollars go just to public schools. Well, that's not necessarily true. And in fact, parochial schools still get more money than us in a lot of different cases. And that money comes to us, and then we actually are the physical agent. Dr. Phillips?
Yes, Mr. Burton is explaining it. The request here is made by one of the administrators at Hillcrest, which is a training school for boys. You're aware that it's in Woodlawn, Wyoming, but it's in Princeton area. And so this particular, the principal of that school has recommended that he needs a secondary administrator on special assignment. And so he's using his funds, Title I-D funds, to support the purchase of that administrator. So it is money that we actually, it flows through from Princeton to Hillcrest, and then they can use the money accordingly, and we make sure that that happens, that they're using it accordingly. And this particular principal administrator wants to hire a specialist.
And this is not our money.
Right.
This is their money that they
Right.
get through the state.
Exactly. It flows through Princeton.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you, Dr. Phillips.
All right.
The last piece would be the extended school year services via the Cincinnati Center for Autism. This is something new, is that correct? That would be number H. The 18 hours?
Yeah, well, no, for the autism, we have any contract that we have given, that we like used, like Center of Autism, we've used them multiple times. That's why it's on the consent agenda. So this is just specifically for an extended school year for each student.
No further questions on the consent
Does
agenda.
anybody else have any questions? And was there a second?
Yes, I second.
Okay. Then Mrs. Petter, would you call the roll?
Mrs. Cleveland? Yes. Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Kessler?
Yes.
Mrs. Weider?
Yes.
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is district business, approval of the March 2022 financial and investment report.
I move to approve the March 2022 financial and investment report.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Mrs. Petter, would you please call the roll?
Oh, I want to say a couple things.
Oh, I'm
first.
sorry.
Have you ever known me not to say a couple things? Again, your standard monthly report, the reconciliation with the investments from Star Ohio and Red Tree included. A very good month. We haven't had one for a while. The economy is helping on the investment side. That is a positive, I guess we can say. On the ESSER reports, ESSER 1 CARES, 99.5% spent or encumbered, a mere $7,500 left to encumber. We are almost there with that grant. I know I keep saying that. We have until June to encumber, September to spend. So that grant is almost off our books. ESSER 2 and 3 are plugging right along. As you can see, ESSER 2, 79.9% spent or encumbered, and we have started dipping into the ESSER 3 funds. So district is making good progress on using those grant dollars. On the March report, the couple things to call your attention to there. We have received our Hamilton County and Butler County final real estate settlements, and Warren came in this week. So all three counties have reported settlements and money coming in just a little bit ahead, which is what we like, just a little bit ahead of what was forecasted in November. What I am going to tell you is, and we will tighten this up in our May version of the forecast, the state money came in higher than expected in November. Remember, we didn't have a true formula as in having the mathematics of it worked out, and we were all making our best estimates and guesses of what that would be. Now that is in place. I think they had corrections in January, February, and March, but it's going well. It's a benefit of about $677,000 to our district. So that is something to certainly celebrate. And our other revenue, in particular, payment in lieu of taxes is higher than we projected in November by about $500,000. This is probably also a direct result of the pandemic. The legislature gave a little bit of a reprieve to the hospitality industry, and that they could have their valuations reduced. Many of them didn't want to go through the official BOR process, which is lengthy, often involves lawyer time and money, and so they agreed to settle with us. So the checks came directly to the district. That is temporary, you know, the pandemic's not going to last forever, so those valuations are probably already booming towards what they were in the hospitality industry, but that industry certainly is rebounding very nicely. Expenses are falling pretty much in line with what we forecasted in November at this point. You'll see the timing issue in the other expense area. That is the fees from Hamilton County Auditor's Office for our real estate. It's just a month different. Last year we got the fees and the settlement in April, and this year we got it in March. So that's just a timing issue. That all will wash out. But other than that, that is your financial report.
Are there any other questions or comments?
It may not have been covered there, but what's the status on the freeze on TPP fund?
We are phasing that out. about 950,000 a year.
Great.
About 10 more years for this, for Princeton.
Thank
We
you.
did receive quite a bit.
That's good news.
I wish we could keep it.
Anything else? Mrs. Petter?
Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Kessler?
Yes.
Mrs. Weider?
Yes.
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland?
Thank you. Motion passes. Next is the approval of amended appropriation resolution and amended certificate of estimated resources. Mrs. Cleveland has moved. Is there
I'll second.
anybody else?
You mean, are there questions?
There are only two changes. I did put this by each of your places. These are the two changes. Our revenue from the athletic tournament fund was much higher than we projected. Our athletic director certainly is doing a great job bringing all the tournaments to the district.
Great.
So, which is a good thing. We were, and we're anticipating 35,000 more in that account before the end of the year. Remember, we pay our bills out of the account for all the tournament expenses, and whatever's remaining, by law, we can then transfer into the athletics account. So, we do pay all the expenses for those tournaments out of there, and what's ever left moves into athletics. The other item is just additional money in the Expanding Opportunities Grant, a higher appropriation for that, more money.
I got a question.
Go ahead.
When we have tournaments,
Yeah.
and you have to pay for parking, who's hosting the charge for parking, and does that money go to Princeton?
I
Yes.
believe.
Who's hosting it?
Clubs, different
Yeah,
clubs.
we have
Different organization within the Princeton School
Princeton.
District?
Yep.
So the opposing team, even though they might be considered the home team or whatever, because Princeton can't play a tournament at Princeton, you're just saying, like, what types of organizations at Princeton sponsor
Oh,
that?
the athletic organizations.
Can you give me an example?
Yeah, the athletic boosters have done that. Cross country has done that before. In fact, when they've done parking, I think water polo has done that before.
Yeah.
Football's done it
Okay.
multiple times. Girls basketball, boys basketball. I think lacrosse did it. Softball, baseball. I think literally all of our sports teams
That's
at some
wonderful.
point took advantage of that. But specifically the athletic boosters, and they are the ones that kind of oversee that. But I know that music boosters have also done parking before.
But
and
when that
other-
money is collected, do they turn it into a safe that night, or do they take the money home?
That is
Or
handled by
drop
the-
it off at my house?
That is all handled by the boosters.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that's outside the school
Outside the
district.
school.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Interesting thought, though, Jana.
Well, you know,
Can't blame a
Wonder.
girl for trying.
I think it's always good to take advantage of opportunities to raise funds for our organizations.
Are there any other questions or comments?
Yes, in regards to revenue, we've all seen an increase in the value of real estate, especially residential property. But I was told that that really doesn't affect our revenue, so could you explain how and why?
So when the valuations increase, the problem is that when we pass a levy or pass a bond to build, levy to operate, we get the amount of money that that millage raised at that time.
Okay.
So back in 2012, if it raised 10 million, and valuations have, of course, gone up incredibly since 2012, we still only collect the 10 million except when it comes to new construction. Then we do receive that as additional dollars.
Okay.
But whatever you pass it for is what you, in essence, get.
And I
That was
think
a good
this, I was
question.
going to talk about this during my report, but this is very relevant here. So with what Chris Petter just said, whatever you pass a levy for, that's what you collect. So House Bill 126 was just passed, and there are several residents that ask every once in a while, we didn't vote for a levy, how come my taxes are going up?
Yeah.
That's because the valuation of businesses change, and we do a very good job of fighting for each taxpayer, that everybody pays their fair share. Here's the issue now is that for us to, we see a sale of a company, we see the valuation, big swings in valuations. For us to challenge that, the board is going to have to act on a resolution now. We're going to have to challenge it, but we can only challenge it if two conditions exist. One is that the valuation change was 10% and at least $500,000. So there's great research that was done, I believe, to look at how, what's the threshold so businesses, and we love our businesses, not like we don't love them, but the reality is we want everybody to pay their fair share.
Yeah.
And so when you look at valuations, if it's $400,000, for instance, we lose collecting $400,000 of valuation. However, because of the way that levies are and the way that Ohio Revised Code reads, we are still going to collect the same amount, and that comes from every taxpayer, including the other businesses that didn't get their valuation change and all of that. So it really is a system that unfortunately was not broken before, but appears to be going down that road now.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No further questions.
No, thank you.
Mrs. Petter?
Mrs. Kessler?
Yes.
Mrs. Weider?
Yes.
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland? Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Thank you. Next item is approval of Memorandum of Understanding, MOU with Princeton Support Staff Association, PSSA.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yes, this memorandum is regarding the Juneteenth holiday, and for those people who are listening who may not know the background, but in June of 1865, slaves in Galveston were freed, and that was on June 19th. And we recognize Juneteenth. They shortened, they combined the words, so it's Juneteenth. And this is so long overdue that this has happened, and I'm so very proud of the fact that it is recognized as a national holiday. It will be a paid national holiday, and the next item, in fact, will speak to that as well. There will not be discussion on that, at least from my standpoint. But when you look at centuries and centuries old of this racism and how we don't recognize classes of people and so forth, the time is now, and I'm so proud of this Board of Education for seeing that and being ready to step up. So thank you.
Is there any other discussion or question? If not, Mrs. Petter?
Mrs. Weider?
Yes.
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland? Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Kessler?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next is approval of resolution approving Juneteenth as a paid holiday for administrators, survivors, supervisors, and non-bargaining unit members.
I move to approve the resolution proudly approving Juneteenth as a paid holiday for administrators, supervisors, and non-bargaining unit members.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yes. I just wanted to clarify that that starts this June of 22, not June of 23.
Oh,
You are correct.
immediate.
In case people did not understand, it's not next school year, it's this June.
I believe the governor signed it on March 10th, and it goes into effect 90 days after his signature.
Okay.
Did they have to swap this for another national holiday, or this was just added on for them? Thank you.
Anybody else? Mrs. Petter?
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland? Yes. Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Kessler?
Yes.
Mrs. Weider?
Yes. Thank you. Motion passes. Next is the approval of overnight student trip for high school student.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I just wanted to once again congratulate Ms. McGowan and Jaquan, who's going to be going down to Atlanta, or excuse me, DC, and so excited about this. And you know, when you start programs and you don't necessarily know where they're going to go, you have hopes and you have dreams and you're going to work really hard and you have faith that it's going to make it happen. But you know, when I was talking to Ms. McGowan one day, this goes back 4 years, we talked about the potential of how far this could go. And she didn't have full classes, and in fact, it was a little bit of a struggle with trying to recruit some kids, and now so much so we have to have another teacher, so much so we have kids that literally are knocking on the doors to get in there. You saw how many kids went to states, just amazing. And this is the first, hopefully will be many to go there. And I wanted to thank, special thanks to Great Oaks, who actually hire, and you know, Ms. McGowan is our teacher, but it's through different funds through Great Oaks. But Great Oaks is actually paying for Ms. McGowan and Jaquan to go down. We're going to pay for one of our administrators to go down, as we should. But it's such an amazing opportunity. I can't wait to hear how it goes.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Mrs. Petter?
Mrs. Cleveland? Yes. Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Kessler?
Yes.
Mrs. Weider?
Yes.
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next is approval of service agreement with Learn, Design, Apply Incorporated.
I move to approve the service agreement with Learn, Design, Apply Incorporated as presented.
I'll second. Is there any discussion or questions?
Can we have a 30-second blurb?
Yes.
Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah. The, you know, we had, and like I discussed in Board Agenda Prep, you know, there's opportunities we have all the time to write grants, and we do. We go after really big grants, done a great job. Tom Sendre, the Director of Strategic Analytics, has done a really good job, brought in close to $800,000 already this year. This is an opportunity to partner with another organization who is 90% successful in getting this grant to go through. We have applied year over year, and in fact, I think one time, I think Dr. Jameson reminded me of this, that one time Princeton has got what's called the 21st Century Grant, one time. And it's hard to get, and this other grant's hard to get. And we could spend time and money trying to, or time and talent trying to chase after this one, or else we could partner with somebody. It's $5,000, and we can get up to $500,000 for safety and security. So we're going to learn a lot through the process. There's going to be a lot of work that we're going to have to do, but this organization has been very successful, 90% effective on getting grants.
Anything else?
So that's their role, is to help us with grants.
Yes. Yep.
Do they help identify the grants, or just once it's been identified, help write and submit the grant?
They help write, submit, they do all that. This specific grant, this is not like widespread. Yes, okay. Yes, yep.
Anything else? Hearing none. Mrs. Petter?
Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Kessler?
Yes.
Mrs. Weider?
Yes.
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland?
Thank you. Motion passes. Next is approval of contract with Curriculum Associates Elevation. I'm sorry.
I move to approve the contract with Curriculum Associates Elevation as presented.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yes, this is a great monitoring program. It helps with our English learners. And, you know, tracking is really important. I don't even like to use that term, but the reality is when you look at monitoring, a better term, this is really going to help us do all that. It's a great program. It's not a big cost, but the results are going to certainly help all of our tutors, all of our teachers, all of our coordinators. This is a great program.
It says quantity 1,300. Is that the number that falls under their purview?
The licenses.
That's
Yes,
what I
we
mean.
have 1,300 licenses.
Yes. Is that the number of students that would be affected by this?
Yes, I think we actually may have gotten one or two more than what we needed because of the fact that we know that we pick up students throughout the course of the year.
Okay.
Anything else? If not, Mrs. Petter?
Mrs. Kessler?
Yes.
Mrs. Wyder?
Yes.
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland?
Yes.
Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next is approval of service agreement with Paper Education Company.
Method learning?
Did you miss one? H.
H.
Oh, I did, I'm sorry. With the contract with Method Learning. I apologize.
I'm-
To approve the contract with Method Learning, ACT, SAT as presented.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yes, anytime we have, well, first of all, you know, we work overtime for all of our students, regardless of ability level. And one of the, as you know, our students take the ACT for one of the state assessments. And the reality is that the ACT or the SAT, obviously the ACT we're talking about right now, we need to provide some additional support for our students. And we talked technology early on, or earlier in the board meeting. And we'll provide data on this too. And I talked to Ms. Stiles earlier this afternoon specifically about this to get some data, because whatever program we use that we're going to actually bring in, and we had a small pilot on this. So they did a survey of the students. 71% of the students said that they would use it. Again, 81% of the students said that it should be implemented within the core instruction, and if they did it, that they would use it, obviously. It's really interesting, too, because I saw the tracking monitoring mechanism, and when you look at that, it shows so every single student that got on that, we see how many questions they answered, how many they got right, how many they got wrong, did they complete the whole course? And it's interesting because when we do surveys, we don't say, hey, what's your name? And we're not going to go back and look at the name. They're all anonymous. But some of it was interesting, though, because some kids were able to complete it, the entire program, 100%. They did unbelievably well, and it only took them 4 hours. We have other kids who were, 16, 12, 20, 30 hours that they did not complete a lot of the lessons or specifically answer a lot of the questions. And it's maybe much like Dreambox, right? The more you use it, the more success you're going to have, but you have to use it authentically. And when you're looking at any type of program, so 71%, did it help you? That answer was yes. 81% would use it again. So
I'm so happy and impressed. Thank you, Mr. Burton. I mean, what grade level will they start being able to use this? Or is it just for juniors, or?
No.
I don't know how that works.
Ms. Stiles, do you want to come up? While she's coming up, just on another aside, so SAT is here too. We know that we have, every year, our sophomores take the PSAT.
That's right.
Okay, and when they do that, there's a lot of different ways. So there's a ton of people. You may see some school districts that talk about the National Merit or National Semi-Finalist or Finalist Award that you can get. So a lot of people don't know this. That doesn't come later on in high school. You actually get that or find out the results based upon what you do in the spring of or fall of your sophomore year.
Yeah.
So with that being said, we're actually creating another program too to help some of those kids that are really right there. And this is one of those.
So with the method learning program, what you get, it's both an ACT and an SAT prep. When we did the pilot, we focused more on the ACT portion because we knew that was the test our juniors were going to be taking in March. We purchased 1,000 licenses for over the course of 2 years, and it's, again, similar to Dreambox where it's accessible 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So we know for sure that every incoming junior is going to have access to that because we know we're going to try to prepare them to the best of our ability for that junior test. It comes with 2 full-length online ACT and SAT practice tests. So we have a junior day set in the fall for them to take a practice test in which they will give you the composite score and all the sub-scores. And then the students will have the opportunity to take a second test. They can actually take it as many times as they want to, but they will only score it from a composite score and raw score standpoint once each time. But if the kid wants to take it time and time and time again for more practice, they can. It just will only give you a result the one time. And then the same thing with the SAT. So what we are going to do is I'm going to work with Michelle Ritzie, who's our testing coordinator, and works with a lot of our students with the ACT and SAT. We're going to look at a lot of that testing data and figure out who other students would benefit as sophomores to receive some of that training and start working on that this summer, so that when they take the PSAT in the fall, which is mid-October, it's a date that's given to us. We don't decide that date. They decide that for us. I think this year was October 13th. So they can start doing that test prep throughout this summer, and then when they take that in the fall, they're better prepared and more equipped, and they're more familiar with that test. So we're kind of getting a 2-for-1 deal with this program because we're able to prepare our students with both of those assessments, and both of them have 2 full-length practice tests in addition to the modules that they can work through, which students will complete practice questions and then watch like video tutorials, and they will give them feedback on how they did on those practice questions, which that is the part that I think will pair very nicely with when the teachers use it in the core classes or when they work through those modules.
This is good news.
Thank you.
Out of 1,000, how many seat license or whatever were utilized?
1,000.
We purchased 1,000.
We utilize every single one.
So everybody took this, went online and took this practice exam?
No, not this one. Remember, we piloted it. But we're going through every single student. Every single student takes the ACT for us. So we have about roughly 500 kids that will take the ACT next year, give or take. Okay, so that's 500. The other 500 will split up and do a variety of activities and all that stuff and give those licenses to the younger grades.
So it's going to be mandatory?
For the juniors, yes.
Okay.
The juniors, and then for the seniors who we know want to retake it, we want to continue to provide that option so that some of the other 500 might go to the seniors who want to retake it. And then we can also give some of those out to the sophomores who are also trying to prep for the PSAT as well.
Excellent.
That's good news.
That's good. Are there any other questions or comments? Mrs. Petter?
Mrs. Weider?
Yes.
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland? Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Kessler?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. And now, approval of the service agreement with Paper Education Company.
I move to approve the service agreement with Paper Education Company as presented.
Second.
Go ahead, Jean. Is there any discussion?
Sure, this is not a purposeful scheme on technology. Talking about that, we did not set this up, but we do have several different technology companies that we're partnering with. This is, all these I'm so excited about, but I believe this one, you're going to hear in the community about the difference it makes. You can never replace a teacher. You can't do that. Our teachers are amazing. We're not perfect. No administrator's perfect. I'm certainly not perfect, but you can't replace a teacher. That interaction is critical. There's so many positive aspects of that. But we know when kids go home, sometimes they struggle. I sat right next to a wonderful parent actually at the UC football game, the spring game. And she said, and her son and daughter and all that, they're at Princeton, and she said, I need help. I don't know Algebra 2. And I think maybe if we gave a quiz to everybody in here, you know, I don't know how everybody would fare. But the reality is, if it's physics and our parents have never taken physics, if they've never taken some subjects, or if they have and they just can't remember it, it'd be great to be able to go online 24/7, multi-language, to be able to find somebody that's going to be able to help you. That's what this does. And it's unbelievable that we're going to be able to get this for our kids. This is 100% going to be utilized, and we started small, 500, right? And they said, you got to get more. But it's a big commitment. It's a big commitment. But this is going to be incredible for our students. We're going to start with this, a group of people that we're going to know that we're going to be able to monitor through study tables and so forth, and then we're going to expand it to where we're using every one of those 500 licenses. Now, what we can't do is use a license, like, for instance, let's say we're doing it for, I don't know, one of our sports teams, because I believe that's really kind of what the goal is right now. So if you use it for one of our sports teams, that license is that student's license for the year. So we can't, like, swap them out so that we have 1,500 licenses by the end of the year. But we're really, really excited, and we're going to try to get this going right away. This is going to be very, very helpful because we know the kids are going to use this, and we're going to be able to monitor that, and we're going to be able to get reports. And I personally witnessed, and I know other people have too, the tutoring aspect of it. It's really, really top notch. So I'm very excited about this program.
For online tutoring or communication, in our own handbook, do we have any limitations on teachers being able to communicate with students online?
Our teachers helping kids? No.
Okay. So then we don't have any problems with background or anything on the tutors that are on this, on the other end of the line?
They've done all that. In fact, that's a very good question because any contract we get at all, we run through our legal department. And there were aspects of this contract that made our legal department really kind of ask some additional questions that really nobody is asked, because usually people see this, it's so great, it just passes right away. But we really wanted to make sure some of the BCI, FBI, all those checks and all that, that they were all above board and all that. But yeah, we don't have, concerns at this point. But if anybody hears something from a tutor, but they're monitored all the time.
Will the kids just type in their question? Mm-hmm. It's all typing, right?
Yeah, so they'll go on. Yeah, they'll go on. The tutor will say, "Hey, I'm so and so. How can I help you?" Mm-hmm. I think it's exactly what they say. How can I help you today, tonight, this morning, whatever. Then they say, "I'm struggling with this," and then they may ask another question or two. But I mean, you see it going. It's remarkable.
And it's instant, no matter what time any kid needs help.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like a chat.
Chat box.
It's a chat, but they have screens that they write on and all that. So like they'll go there and so let's say that they want to solve for y, and it's 2 times 5y equals 30 or whatever.
It's not virtual, meaning it's not like a Zoom. It's chat, so they're going to be doing a chat box.
Well, their chat. I know that there's also another aspect though where there's not going to be any type of going in and you can't see each other or whatever. Okay. Yep.
Okay. And then I was curious on the Schedule A, just looking at the detail. Maybe for Chris. I'm looking at the amount per student, but then when I look down at special terms, there's a different amount. How does that work? Where we have until September 31st to get additional licenses. I'm trying to understand how does this work, because the pricing is different, very different. It's almost half the price.
That's because probably volume.
But do we have to get the full 2,500 licenses, or?
Oh, no.
No, I meant for us to get that price.
Yes. Yeah, the reduction in the price, yes.
So we have until September 31st this year.
Which doesn't exist. It doesn't exist.
You're right. So we
Just
can't
saying.
ever do this because the date doesn't exist. But anyway, September 30th is what I think they meant.
Yeah.
Because there is no 31 days in September.
Yeah.
So we may want to correct that, number one. And then, I guess the way I'm reading this is that if we were to say yes to an additional 2,500 licenses, it would be for that reduced rate.
Yes.
What we're doing right now is a pilot, and when will we know for sure whether or not we want to extend? Because that's not that much time from now to that. So I'm trying to understand the timing.
Sure. Well, here's what's interesting with this contract. So this contract right now is for 500 licenses. It gives us an option to do more, but we can always do more.
But at that rate?
I am very, very confident.
That's what I'm looking at.
I know the rate's amazing. I'm very, very confident we can get that rate.
Okay.
I'm not, there's no hesitation, in fact.
Okay.
You know, they actually, the state of Mississippi, every school in the state of Mississippi is utilizing paper. They're literally all over the country, and there's many other states that actually are partnering with paper, like New York. I think something like 65% of all the school districts in New York either are using it or are going to adopt it. Connecticut, Massachusetts, all that.
They can do
So,
any topic.
yes.
I like the New York reference.
I know, in the Connecticut, that's why I did. I saw
Better,
nonverbal.
much better than the other one, because then
Well,
this
but-
doesn't work if you use the other one, because there's two
No,
ranked
but it shows
49th.
it shows the commitment, though, and of an entire state is going to sign off on that, and you have many other states and signing off on, or many other parts of states signing off on it. That's really good.
Just saying.
I can
Yeah,
see why
when-
Mississippi signed off on it, though, for real.
Wouldn't that be nice?
They're still 49. They're 49th, okay.
I mean, I think they're the most uneducated, second to the last most uneducated state in the
Listen, I
union.
love Mississippi.
I
think
do
people
too.
in
My,
Mississippi are
David
phenomenal.
Ruffin love Mississippi, but we
Yeah.
were
That's
trying
why-
to get out of there because
I believe
the
that's why you
education
moved.
system wasn't that
I
great.
believe that's why you moved. Thank you.
That's why we moved.
Okay.
Some of my best friends are from
I'm
Mississippi.
just evaluating the product.
Is there anything else? Mrs. Petter?
Mr. Simons?
In spite of the state of Mississippi, I'm going to go with New York and Connecticut and vote yes.
Mrs. Cleveland?
I'm going to vote with the state of Mississippi and say yes.
Mrs. Moore?
I'm gonna vote with the state of Mississippi and the state of New York and the entire nation for the wonderful program that this is. So it's a resounding yes.
Mrs. Kessler?
Yes.
Mrs. Whiter?
Yes. Motion passes. Next is the approval of the bid for the destruction of a building on Princeton property.
Superintendent Burton, can you tell us more
I
about
think
this?
you should make that motion, Susan. That's,
When the time comes, I will.
well, we got to make the motion so we can second.
Okay.
Motion,
Yeah.
second
Well,
discussion.
I'll move to approve it.
And I will second that motion to approve the contract for the destruction of a building on Princeton property as presented.
Now, is there any discussion?
Yes. So for all the people that are out there in TV land watching right now, you may remember as a young student at Princeton going to the old Relis building and going to the Nature Center, seeing the owls, stuffed owls they had there, some crows, I think even an eagle. I think we saw all those there when it became dilapidated, and myself and Mr. Fricky and Mr. Kutel went in there to take a look at what was left. By the way, a lot of that actually we talked to science teachers to see if they wanted any of that to be able to use that. Since that day, we were looking at maybe doing some storage in there. There was a couple of trees that fell on the building. We actually repaired it. We had a couple unfortunate break-ins there to try to get some of the hot water tank or some of the copper that they felt was in the facility. So it really has fallen on tough times. Now it looks okay from the outside. On the inside, it's really bad. So we made the recommendation to raise or destruct the Nature Center. And what Mr. Fricky's going to do is kind of take some pictures of that. We're going to put it on just saying goodbye to the old nature center. I'm telling you, I heard about that nature center. People talked about. Everybody went up there. It was kind of a rite of passage. But right now, it's you know, we're throwing good money after bad.
Did the city of Sharonville say it needed to be torn down?
Nope.
So what's the urgency of tearing it down?
It's a collection spot for people. It's been broken in multiple times. We've removed the graffiti from it. We've painted it. The trees have fallen on it. We've replaced the roof. All that costs us money. And in fact, and Mr. Fricky, please correct me if I'm wrong, but since I've been here, I believe that what we're going to pay for this, we pay twice as much to try to keep it up when it's not even used. It can't be used.
Now, this is not the only Princeton property that is in disrepair. Why this one and not the other one?
The other one doesn't have people hanging around there doing things that they shouldn't be doing.
No. We have security cameras there?
We ended up putting security cameras up there because of what happened multiple times, which was another cost to us.
So I guess we'll just let the public know that
Let
the
the
Nature
public know.
Center is going.
Well,
If you want a photo with it,
what was
go
once
up
the
there now.
Nature Center, which is now a brown
history.
building, is going.
Okay.
The Nature Center has been gone for, I think, 10 years.
This is true. But in the true history of the great Princeton City School District, if you want a photo in front of what used to be the Nature Center.
Yeah, if you want a photo.
You gotta
come
go
on.
now.
Mr. Fricky, when are we going to do this?
You're not gonna do it soon, are you?
Listen,
Oh,
this
that's
is
a
what
very
we're gonna
good
do.
answer.
We'll give the public 2 months.
2 months.
We'll give the public 2 months.
Class of 75, you're on the
Okay,
way.
we'll take a picture and we'll tweet it out that if you want a picture in front of the brown building, which used to be the Nature Center.
Yes.
You can do that, but I'm going to be
And
talking
throw
about
in their
something with
favorite
Nature
teacher
Center.
too. Could their former teacher from Relish stand there with them? Yes.
Oh, all the classes had to go.
All classes had to go.
And I
so.
can tell you, Gina, I always had to go in December, and Carolyn Cook would say the ground is frozen. If you touch your bare skin to the ground, your skin will stick. Don't do that.
You didn't try it.
No, I didn't.
Okay,
I
good,
listened
good,
to
good. I'm
her.
happy. Remind me of a
Are you
movie.
trying to tell me they weren't wearing shoes in December?
But the kids wanted to be touching with their hands, and
Oh,
she
I
said,
thought you
don't
said
do it.
It was a tactile experience
Oh,
for
is that
fourth
what it
and
was?
fifth graders.
Yeah, and it would tear
Yes.
their skin off.
Yes, but thank you very much, Superintendent Burton, for that.
You're very welcome,
that-
board member.
That caring explanation.
Yes.
Is there a second? John, thank you. Okay, it has been moved and seconded. Mrs. Petter?
Mrs. Cleveland? Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Kessler?
Yes.
Mrs. Wyder?
Yes.
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next is approval of agreement with the Village of Lincoln Heights.
I move to approve the agreement with the Village of Lincoln Heights as presented.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Well, first of all, I just want to give a shout out to Lincoln Heights. If you don't know what's going on in Lincoln Heights, you're getting ready to. There's so many great things going on there. One of them is partnership with Cincinnati Reds, Procter & Gamble, GE Aviation, and others for what's going to be the new memorial field there. Football field, baseball field, walking track, and so forth. So this is a little small easement on our property at the base of the hill to be able to help with one of their walking paths.
So this is not the solar piece?
This is not the solar piece.
Okay.
They didn't. Yeah, we were waiting for that piece. That one didn't come. This did.
Can you tell us what that means, the solar piece?
Where are the easements located?
Okay. I'm thinking solar. I'm
Oh,
thinking.
well, that's not on the agenda, but you can tell us where
What's
the
the solar
easement's
piece?
located.
Oh. I'm just supposed to know.
So
Okay.
for this agenda item, this is it, but I'll put it in my report.
Okay, you know more than me.
Oh, no.
I know about the solar piece. Thank you.
Easement location? Do you know?
Okay.
Do we know?
It's in,
It's not in, is it?
I
Do you
don't
have
know how to
where the
describe
location is?
where this is.
My colleague does not have the location.
I have it
Mrs.
up here.
Winter Kessler, do you have the location of the easement?
Can you explain?
Other than lat long, if you have that?
so the parking lot itself, so when you look at, so our parking lot in Lincoln Heights, it's the back of the building. This would come into a little bit of that and then traced by the fence that leads down by the big hill.
You talking behind the elementary school or the high school?
New
Yep.
elementary.
Elementary
Okay,
school.
yeah, I got that
Steps.
illustration.
Yeah.
I got
It was in your packet.
I got it. Thank you.
It was in the packet.
It's in, we just got it today. I think, is that when it
Yeah,
came, Chris?
mine was online.
It's online.
Do you see what she had?
In board docs.
My colleagues did not receive that, that's why.
It's
You don't
in-
have to show it to us.
It's in board
But I'm saying
docs.
she didn't.
Yeah,
Because it
it's
just
there.
came today.
No. Chris said it was in the packet.
I thought it was in your packet.
And I'm reporting that my colleagues did not receive that. So that's fine.
And I was wrong. It was
Okay.
not in your packet, but they
Okay.
got it today.
No, it
Okay.
was
Is that what you said?
It was not.
He said it was in board docs. He's right, I saw it. I just looked at it.
On board docs. You think they'll build steps? Is that what it's supposed to be, steps?
You know what, Ms. Simon, I don't know what they're gonna, they have so many different, I've seen a lot of different renderings of it, but it looks spectacular,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. That's excellent.
But what we could do is I'm sure we can get an overhead map of it, whatever, to show all that stuff. I know we've had that done before. We've talked about this for quite a while with the easement, but until we actually got that documentation, we weren't gonna bring it to the board.
Anything else? Mrs. Petter?
Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Kessler?
Yes.
Mrs. Weider?
Yes.
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland?
Thank you, motion passes. Next is the academic update.
Thank you very much. This month, we are going to talk about the early childhood legislative updates. This is going to have big ramifications for us in a couple different perspectives. So Ms. Tanya West-Wright is going to come up, and she's going to talk about things like the dyslexia bill. And the dyslexia bill, and remember, we've jumped on top of a lot of these things very, very early on. And as they go through their presentation, I'll pass this out.
Good evening, everyone. We wanted to just make sure to update you on some things. We've done a lot of our time talking about COVID and addressing learning loss, but there's also been a lot of legislative updates that have come out on early childhood. In January of 2021, Governor DeWine signed the dyslexia bill, and he formed a dyslexia committee that has been working since January 21st to tell us exactly how things are going to play out starting next school year. But unfortunately, they still have not given us the official guidebook. But what we know now and what we have to plan for now is that there will have to be dyslexia screening measures beginning at the start of next year for all students in K-3. So we know that that is coming. They have not announced yet what screening measures are going to be approved by the state, but we know that we have to get ready. We do believe we're on the right track with some of the screening measures we already use. However, that's not official yet. When the tech guidebook comes out, we'll know for sure. We also know that by the end of the 2022-23 school year, our kindergarten and first grade teachers will have to have 18 hours of professional development. The teachers will learn to identify characteristics of dyslexia and the instructional needs of students with or at risk of dyslexia. So we know that our professional development days, a lot of those days for our kindergarten and first grade teachers will be about dyslexia and the requirements that the state has provided to us. We will not be able to do all 18 hours in our PD day, so we will have to have some release time for the teachers. So we want to work with them and develop that. New in the legislation is also that they're asking for special area teachers to have 6 hours. If they work with kindergarten or first grade teachers, they have to have that by the end of the next school year. In addition, some of our teachers will have to have the multi-sensory structured literacy certification. So professional development is for everyone, but a higher level of certification will be required. They're saying that the districts will locally determine which educators, and they're saying it's going to have to be a ratio of your district staff members. Ratio has not been released. I asked Mrs. Teresa Warren, who's our special education director, to come up and talk about a lot of the work she's done moving forward, and also the director of teaching and learning for elementary, Ladora Hill. They've gotten many of our teachers involved in some Orton Gillingham training, which will count for this multi-sensory structured literacy certification, we believe, but the guidebook is not out. And again, the guidebook is supposed to come out in spring of 2022, so we're anxiously awaiting all of the details, but we wanted the district leaders to be aware. We've been communicating with teachers, but we have a lot of planning to do to make sure that this is effective for the literacy needs of our students, but that our staff knows exactly what's coming. So Mrs. Warren.
So there have also been some preschool regulation changes. There was a new regulation passed in July of 2021 that went into effect for this school year. So we have been working all school year to kind of look at what that looks like and kind of play catch up since they didn't give us very much time to adjust to those changes. The highlights, there are some licensure changes around classroom teachers not being able to provide special education services to students that are in their classroom, which then requires us to have an additional staff person going in to provide special ed services in addition to their classroom teacher. We have 4 types of preschool classrooms within Princeton. We have an early childhood classroom, we have Head Start classrooms, we have blended classrooms, which is a half and half model where half of the students have disabilities and half of the students are typical peers. And then we have special education classrooms. The state has changed the definitions of those types of classrooms and is really encouraging more of the gen ed setting and less services being provided in those blended classrooms and special education programs, in addition to promoting community programs that are outside of our district. So that has been another change that we are trying to adjust to. And then third, the related service staff that are in and out of those classrooms to serve students, whether that's in the classroom or whether they're being pulled out for services, also have additional training that has to be in place by May of this year. So next month, there's additional training for all of the staff members that are going in and serving those students in the classroom that aren't there every day. So those are the main changes from the legislation. We've had a few tweaks to locations for preschool classrooms for next school year, and those are listed at the bottom of the slide. So Evendale will have an early childhood classroom as well as a blended classroom. Glendale and Lincoln Heights will continue to have their Head Start classrooms. Springdale will have an early childhood and then a blended classroom, as well as Stewart. And then Woodlawn will have our special education classrooms and maintain their Head Start classroom there as well.
And you will see, because of some of the new regulations, that there'll be an increase in staffing, specifically when it looks at our 5-year forecast, you know, trying to predict all that stuff, but we had to add new staff to be compliant.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to give you an update on our creative curriculum and handwriting. We are very excited for our youngest Vikes to participate in creative curriculum. We will partner with Hamilton County Education Services. This is awesome, and we have buy-in from our teachers. We've worked for our team preschool. We've worked together on this to figure out what is best for students. So this is a comprehensive curriculum that's aligned with our Step Up to Quality, rules and assessments. We're excited about having a portfolio for our students, a digital portfolio for our little bikes, so that we can monitor their progress with actionable data. So we're very excited about that. And also the key strategies, the teaching strategies, they're embedded in the daily curriculum through units of study. So that includes their handwriting, it includes small group instruction, personalization, all in one nice little bow. And the other piece that's really exciting, it's adaptable to meet the needs of our special education students. And that was really, really important to our preschool team to make sure we met the needs of each student. So we're excited about that. The other piece too is family engagement. That is a really big component for our Step Up to Quality. And this will provide activities, videos, and other hands-on engaging activities that we could have our parents involved. Also things to go home in different languages as well. And lastly, one of the updates for our KRA, our Readiness Assessment, that measures our school readiness for all of our incoming kindergartners. And typically that assessment is given by our kindergarten teachers in the classroom, in person, individually, and then also in a group setting. So this year, the state has decided that we have to give that assessment within the first 20 days of the students entering, which is really different from the past. And usually we had until November 30th to give this assessment to our students. So we are working with our principals, our coaches, and our team to figure out a way to support our teachers when we have to give the assessment 2 months earlier than typical. So do we have any questions?
Handwriting.
Yes,
Does that mean
handwriting.
cursive? Does that mean cursive?
Yes, it does, in third grade. Yes, it does.
Thank you.
Okay. And we're starting in preschool, so they're going to be awesome and ready to go by the time they get to third grade.
So preschoolers will start learning cursive? Is that?
They're going to start learning the basics and hopefully have those
And then,
skills
okay, of
that they will
course.
be able to write letters correctly and form them correctly so that they are ready for cursive in third grade.
Now,
Thank you.
this mentions, I'm sorry, dyslexia screening measures. What's done now? What does one do now as a teacher do you just happen to notice dyslexia or what?
Well, we have supports in place currently we have supports in place where we look at different areas of phonemic awareness, comprehension, reading fluency. So we're looking at all of those at this time. So what's going to happen is our teachers are going to be trained, with the learning more about the science of reading and what indicators look like in terms of what could be dyslexia. So just more training and more in-depth look at the science of reading and how we teach students how to read.
That's good.
Okay.
So do schools still have reading specialists? Like each school used to have one person that was like really, really good at that in terms of diagnosing. We don't have those anymore. That's why the teachers are doing it.
We have Title I support in our schools as well.
Okay.
And our students are receiving reading instruction at their level through our reading program.
Okay.
I want to
Thank you.
jump in to talk about, now, remember our K-3 teachers, many of them have their reading endorsement. So we are at a really good place at Princeton that I do believe that the 18 hours will hopefully just reinforce. But there's people that maybe they did not have the reading endorsement and they do not have the training. But remember, all teachers that teach kindergarten through third grade students that are determined to be off track, they have to have some specialized reading training. So most of our teachers that teach third grade do have a reading endorsement or have had special classes to make sure that they can address the needs of those students that are not on track. But that usually starts, some of them we put in second and third grade. So this is going to have that science of reading training that a lot of our third grade teachers have had to address the third grade reading guarantee. It's going to take it down to K and all the way up to 12. because a lot of what they're noticing is that phonics instruction was glossed over in some districts, not particularly our district. Our reading program was really heavy with phonics.
Yeah.
So like I said, we hope that the 18 hours will reinforce some of the training that we've had, but for some people, we know that it will be new. But we do have many teachers that do have a reading endorsement.
And may I ask one more question? From an educational perspective, finding out whether someone is dyslexic or not, it's really important that you find that out really early. Otherwise, the problems a child is having, you could think it's something else when it's really that.
I think that is new language for school systems, and I know Teresa Warren can talk about that a little bit more, because sometimes that would be discussed in special education meetings when you're trying to truly identify why the child is not reading. And so normally in school settings, we did not talk about dyslexia. We were trying to find, was it phonics? We were trying to go back through. So that's one of the reasons that they're doing the training, because now that is a word that we're going to discuss a little bit more. And did I leave out anything, Mrs. Warren?
Thank you.
Thank you. This is good news.
Okay. Next is policy update.
This is just to align the staff dress policy with student dress policy.
I'm sorry, say that again.
This is just to align our staff dress policy with the student dress policy. So there's a few changes in there.
Then, treasurer's report.
I'm entering forecasting season, which is possibly my favorite season of the year. I get it twice a year, really, to deep dive and review where we stand on our current forecast, project out a little bit. So that's the work session topic for the end of the month. So we'll have lots of exciting updates, charts that I've been learning through this tool that continues to amaze me. And I am at the OASBO conference yesterday, and today, and tomorrow, and I return on Wednesday. We have had some excellent sessions. The economic outlook was very interesting this time. People were attempting to be positive about our economic outlook. Certainly our interest rates on investments are showing a positive, but we do have a lot of areas of concern right now that we have to watch. I went to a session on forecast reporting that we are going to have a lot of fun with. And of course, my favorite topic, ESSER and the audit that is impending. They said that we should look for ESSER audits every year. Typically, we only have one federal grant audited per year, but because of the size and the amount of money that districts are receiving, they said just plan on having ESSER audited every year. So I only sent 2 emails back to people, but things they told us to be ready for, I think that's always good to know. And then we had new law passed for treasurers requiring a certificate of transition. And I think the board's going to be very interested in this, because in essence, it's requiring by law for all financial people in local government to put down certain requirements in writing so you can leave them to your predecessor. So it's now been put in law that we must do this. And I think the majority of the law was to address elected fiscal officers, which can leave rather quickly and not leave documentation and or your phone number for your predecessor. As the treasurers around the state know, we are quite a club, and we take care of our own, and I can't imagine us doing that to each other. But now we're going to have to, and it's a pretty heavy lift. So I have that on my to-do list to get that started, because it could be pulled at audit anytime. So that's something on my to-do list that I've I got some good information on, and I have a template from the auditor, so we'll move forward on that, hopefully get that done before the end of the fiscal year, in case it's pulled at audit. So, but that's what I have.
So if you win $1 million one day and decide just up and quit, at least we have some information on what our money situation is. Thank you.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get it.
Every, you know, and it's a double-edged sword, because there's certain things they want documented that, you know, fraud, risks for public records requests. We had that pro and con discussion.
Okay.
It's, you know, we have some sensitive information that necessarily shouldn't be completely written out so that everyone could have access to it. So, but we have a lot of good legal advice on how to handle it.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Mrs. Petter? If not, it's time for the superintendent's report.
Thank you. I wanted to start off by recognizing one of our esteemed colleagues up here, Mary Cleveland. You see those beautiful flowers that are there on behalf of the Board of Education, but people probably don't know, because Mary is a very humble person, but she's going to serve on the Ohio School Board Association, the Board of Trustees, and that's a lot. And she's also the president-elect of OSBA, the Southwest region of it, so she'll be taking a big leadership role there on top of the trustee. And I think everybody knows this, that you're involved in Great Oaks, but I don't know if they know that you're vice chair. So Mary, literally on behalf of the Board of Education, thanks for being willing to take a step to help the entire state.
Yeah, good job.
Let me say, it's easy to do it when you represent Princeton. I mean, it really is. You know, I have to give it to all of our educators here, our board, superintendent, treasurer, for you make this an easy decision to make. When I know that I'm representing the best, for anyone who's not part of Princeton, understand we are the best district out there, so, by far.
Well, congratulations. We're in good hands with Mary Cleveland and Allstate, apparently. Hey, so a couple of very quick hitters. One is that, you know, we've talked about this big development going in Tri-County. We've talked about development going in Springdale, another development in Woodlawn. There's great work being done in Lincoln Heights. And so you guys are probably thinking, oh, geez, that's awesome. And it is awesome, but it poses some interesting questions for us as a school district. Like, what about enrollment? What is it? What happens there? So we have, in fact, I just sent another email today to another company that does enrollment projections, and we're looking at trying to come to an accord with somebody that's going to be able to give us reliable data so that we can make some big decisions. So currently, we have right around 6,100 students in our district. A couple of years ago, before COVID hit, we had about 6,500 in our district. So there's a lot of different ways to look at this, because if for anybody that's like going to the state report card and you're going to see 5,700 or 5,900, that's a big difference. But the way they calculate students, they give percentages of students. So if you have X amount of students that are only here for a half a day, they're full to us, but because we love them all, but they only counted as 0.5 at Princeton. So it's a little misleading when you think about it. You don't build a school based upon how many kids, how many half-day kids you have in the school. You can't do that, because the half-day turns into full day. That's just the way it is. So just know the Board of Education is really, really on top of this whole enrollment piece, knowing that it has to be done, enrollment study. So we're going to do a deep dive in that. And in fact, just today I was looking at some numbers with some other schools. Like we have a population, you know, Princeton is so unique. Mary said it's the best, I agree, but it's really, really unique, right? You know, we have 2 cities, 4 villages, or parts of 3 counties and parts of 3 townships. So we have people that aren't in any of the 6 areas we serve, the 2 cities, 4 villages, but they're in townships. So we have some that are really close to Heritage Hill, that if it makes sense that they would walk right down the street and go to Heritage Hill. We have another group that actually lives in Sharonville that it would make sense that they don't go to Heritage Hill, they go to Sharonville because they're playing rec basketball and softball and swimming and in the rec with Sharonville people. So we're looking at a whole bunch of different things just to see if anything makes sense. On top of that, you have what looks like this enrollment increase that's going to be coming. We have one of our elementary schools that's close to capacity, maybe a little bit over, but doesn't feel that way when you talk to some of the people there. We have other elementary schools that we know are going to see a big increase. We just know it. But we want an expert to tell us that, give us some analytics so that we can make some decisions. For sure, what we know right now, our middle school is big. It's too big. And so when you look specifically at that, and you look at those numbers going to the high school in 9th and 10th grade, before they have an opportunity to go to the great programs that they have at Scarlet Oaks through Great Oaks, and maybe have some other things. We have some big decisions to make as a board and as a district. And so we need to do a deep data dive, and that's what we're going to try to do. But I wanted to make sure I spent a little bit of time talking about that because I think it's very relevant, and the sooner everybody hears that, the better we're going to all be. So I saw Mr. Fricke was taking down some notes. The company that we used before, the Enrollment Projections, we know we could call them and we could have them do something again. Some of the data we were a little bit concerned about, so we'll talk to them again, but, you know, we had a little bit concerned about that. All right, speaking of enrollment and all that stuff, this is one of the big decisions with the board. You know, we've talked about STEAM Institute, we've talked about, you know, a lot of different types of grade configurations, but primarily you heard 6 to 12, and you heard that from me. So let me be really, really clear on this, that we have all the flexibility in the world to change, to modify, based upon what's best for our students. That's what we do. So the developers, they want to come do a presentation for the board. I talked to them earlier today. They're excited about coming to the board to provide some updates, which may change some things for us. So just want to let everybody know that early on, because that's really important. And the board has been very diligent, asking very detailed questions that I think are relevant for all of us to consider. With that being said, we got great news the other day, over the weekend. I love getting emails over the weekend when they're really, really positive. So Evendale Elementary School joined Stewart, Heritage Hill, Woodlawn, the middle school and the high school, with being designated as Purple Star for military-friendly schools. That's phenomenal. Really, really proud of them and the great work that they're doing. And the fact that we continue to be recognized is wonderful. Last week, as the board knows, we had hosted a contingent of students through the Thurgood Marshall College Fund and accelerated grade schools from HBCUs across the country. And Dr. Jameson did a phenomenal job organizing it, collaborating with internal, external folks to make that happen. And it was incredible. And I know that all the board members would have been there if they could have, but we also had that same night, vocal chamber ensemble. We also had other commitments, and then I know that Ms. Ruffin-Moore and Mr. Simons were able to attend the dinner and saw the great excitement and enthusiasm that people felt toward Princeton. And I'm very excited to say that we were able to hire one thus far. We have 2 other students that really rose up, did a great job. That one took another job we know already. The other one is still in consideration for us. But it's just such an amazing, when you have some of the best and brightest pre-service teachers and you're able to have them here for 8 hours and show off the great work of Princeton. It's amazing. So Dr. Jameson, a special shout out to you. You know, yes, please, yeah, please. He always sits where I can't see him because the monitor blocks it. So there he is. Okay, there you go, Dr. Jamison. Thank you. You know, we were talking about the what was once such a great feature at Princeton, which was a nature center. But many people don't know there's walking trails and hiking trails and all the stuff all the way back through there. And in fact, I think you could get about a 2-mile walk in without crossing any other path. We had some Eagle Scouts that wanted to do work back there, came with the Eagle Scout Project. Myself, Mr. Fricky, and a couple of them, we walked around, we looked at some bridges, some smaller bridges that needed repair and some just general upkeep. And did a great job. We were really excited about that. So when you're going to the old nature center, the Brown building, to be able to take a picture, I encourage you guys to get some fitness and walk back on that trail. You'll see it really did. Elijah Spence is a young man from Princeton that did it and really did a great job on that. And then lastly, Ms. Ruffenmore asked about a solar project. In the last board agenda prep meeting that we have every week before we have a regular board meeting, I meet with the vice president and the president of the Board of Education. During that time, there's agenda items or potential agenda items that get put on for discussion. One of those was a solar project that we talked to Lincoln Heights about. I mentioned this at least once or twice, specifically about the solar project would be able to, it initially was going to go on the roof of the elementary school. Now they're saying it's not, it wouldn't be going there, it's going to go on the ground, but we're waiting for details to bring them to you. But essentially it's low wattage, if you will. All the electricity will actually go. It'll basically be able to take care of the electricity for one classroom. But it's part of a much bigger project. Mm-hmm. And quite frankly, you know, when you look at some of these projects, partnering with Princeton means something. And again, we're not perfect. Like, we work really, really hard. I think we work smart, but we're not perfect. But when you look at our district, people want to partner with us for a multitude of reasons. But the biggest reason is because we get stuff done. That's a fact. That's why you've seen a lot of people come to us, and some of these partnerships we get, it's like crazy to think about. Like, there's bigger districts around this area, but yet they come to Princeton. National Institute of Health, University of Cincinnati, list goes on and on. STEM goes red, goes literally on and on. I was just invited today to go to Ethicon for a STEM program that we have through one of our elementary schools. And they're like, please have your superintendent come because we're so proud of what you guys are doing. I mean, I'm telling you, like, we follow through. So any business, you want to give us some money, you can. But the reality is, let's just partner. Let's continue to develop these relationships because we will follow through and we will give you data. That is all.
Any questions for Mr. Burton?
I have a question. That building that we used to own, the Lincoln Heights Elementary building, will we have to tear that? Well, we can't tear it down because we don't own it.
No, we don't own it. Mm-mm.
But will that building have to be there for you to proceed with?
No, my understanding is that they're working on raising that.
Good.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? Is there a motion to go into executive session? Well, then I'll move we go into executive session.
You have to give a read this.
To discuss under sections 121.22G, 1, 2, and I wrote on top of some of it, Gina, you're going to have to help me, to consider the dismissal and something about charges. See, I wrote on mine, Gina.
Oh, yes. To consider the dismissal and investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee of the Ohio Revised Code.
Thank you. And John has seconded. Mrs. Petter, would you call the roll?
Mrs. Kessler?
Yes.
Mrs. Wyder?
Yes.
Mr. Simons? Mrs. Cleveland? Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Motion passes.